Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument should have ended like basically 20 years ago. The thing is that back in the 90s when you had all these violent video games and like for example Mortal Kombat and the such, they created the ESRB to stop these problems. And when I hear people complaining about them today, it makes me think that odds are these newer parents were probably non-gamers. I mean, most of the current parents now would have probably grown up on, say, Nintendo 64, GameCube, PlayStation 2, sort of, possibly Wii, those kinds of game systems. And so you should have at least an understanding of which the video games are and possibly the ESRB. Much like, yeah. And, oh, damn. Anyway, yeah. So, the thing is, it's like most people treat video games the same way, damn. Okay. One of the things people should really stop doing is treating video games as a kids-only thing, like cartoons or specific movies. Like movies or books, they are made for all ages, with some being made for more mature audiences such. So, now that's a discussion for another time, and more specifically about mediums. But the idea is you should treat each video game as its own thing. Don't just assume that they are all made for kids, because they are not. And people, they worry about these like violent kids, their kids playing violent video games and such, but they shouldn't have to worry. I mean, they have the judgment, the responsibility to buy these games themselves. I mean, it's not really an issue, and I'm going to explain why. First off, you have the money issue. Now, your average kid from, like, say, 15 and under doesn't really have a lot of money. They don't have a steady stream of income the way an adult would. Like, when you're a kid, $50, $60 is a lot of money. Now, they might be able to have an allowance of maybe $10 to $20 a week, depending on the parent. Or, but a lot of that money goes to various other things, be it toys, possibly books, school supplies, or anything that they might be interested in. Which is so many things. That also might include like the occasional food from like fast food places or convenience stores. And in the case of girls, like when they get to like around age 10 or 12, that's when they start going to mall stores like Claire's to get cheap jewelry and such, and that's when they start like learning about makeup and things. I know this because I had a younger sister that age, and that's where I would take her a lot of times at the malls. So they generally don't have that kind of money. I mean, sure, they could probably save up for it, but that might take a while. Generally speaking, video games have always been relatively expensive, where for most new games, like you would only really be able to justify it as a Christmas present, for on the holidays, or possibly a birthday. And the other thing to remember is that kids, specifically 16 and under, do not have credit cards, so they can't just straight up buy something. But now I might hear you saying, well, what about, okay, they just had money on a birthday, a bunch of friends gave them money and such. What about that? Okay, well, even if they had said money, they can't outright buy those games anyway. Let's say they go to a store that like has a good selection of video games, something like, say, Walmart or Target, GameStop, Best Buy. Because of the ESRB rating, they simply cannot buy those games. Now, you might be familiar with movie ratings, the G, general audiences, PG, parental guidance, PG-13, parental guidance, strongly suggested, and R. Now, I know most of us haven't been to the movies in a while, but generally speaking, if a kid went to the movies, with the little cash they did have, they would go to the movies, they would be allowed to see G movies, no problem. PG, okay. PG-13, probably no big deal. But R, you're not going to go, as a kid, you can't see an R-rated movie without a parent or an adult. So unless you have your older brother with you, older sister, or an uncle or something, unless you have an adult with you, you cannot see those movies. And it's very much the same thing with video games. Except that, I think video games have a stronger rating. Now here we have the movie The Predator. Now you wouldn't know this is an R-rated movie. It's part of the franchise. You can't see that anywhere on the cover. Now if you turn to the back, you can't really see it either. It's a tiny corner right here. And it tells you it's R, and it tells you what's in it. Strong bloody violence, language throughout, and crude sexual references. But again, it's very tiny. You can barely see it. Now, video games have a similar rating. There's early childhood, which is basically anything for a preschooler. Then you have E, games for everyone. E10, games basically for everybody over 10. And they usually contain something like cartoony violence, which some parents might find offensive. Then you have T-rated games and M-rated games, which are for mature audiences over 17. Now, here we have, it's like a Gear Club Unlimited 2, generic racing game. You'll notice the E for everyone, right in the corner, very visible. And here it doesn't really say much, because again, it's racing game, nothing overly offensive. Here we have an E10 game based on the Aladdin and Lion King games that were released on the Genesis, Super Nintendo era kind of thing. Anyway, this one is rated E10. And it says on the back here you have a nice description box. It says cartoon violence. Tells you exactly what's in. Very, very visible. Here we have the Dragon's Lair trilogy. Rated T for teen. Again, visible logo. You can clearly see this. On the back, same thing. Very visible to teens. Blood, fantasy violence, and suggestive themes. So you straight up know it. It's easy to see, unlike your average movie, what it is. And then here we have Mortal Kombat 11, rated M. Notice the M for mature. Again, you can clearly see it there. It says mature 17 plus. You turn it around, again, very visible description. Blood and gore, intense violence, and strong language. So that's the rating system. And it was implemented in the mid-90s to basically help parents and kids. It's buy things. Now, if a kid has the money from, say, a birthday or something and tries to go to a store and buy an M-rated game like this, they simply can't. The cashiers at the registers, they will check, to see an ID that, they are old enough to buy this game. You cannot buy an M-rated game at any major store without an ID. A parent generally has to buy it. So, usually it's you, the adult, who walks in and buys the game. And that's the thing. It's basically, no matter where you go, you cannot buy this. Maybe at a, what do you call that? A yard sale or something. But other than that, any legit store will not be able to sell an M-rated game that's to a minor. And the other thing is that even if they, for example, a lot of stores now, they have the self-checkouts. First of all, a lot of stores these days, they have their games in a case, so you need somebody to open it. And again, if they try to go to self-checkout, one, they're going to need somebody to open it. And two, even if you have an M-rated game or an R-rated movie and you try to self-checkout, it will lock till somebody comes over and checks it to see that you are of age to buy it. So them being able to get the game is very unlikely and hard. But for the sake of argument, let's move to my third point. And that is, let's say somehow they did get their hands on the game. Maybe an uncle bought it, or maybe they got it used at a yard sale or something, or maybe they borrowed it from a friend, which was a very popular thing to do when I was a kid. Swap games with friends, or maybe a friend brought it over. Since 2006, since I believe the 6th generation of video games with the Wii, the PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360, all those systems have had built-in parental locks, making it so you can go in there and set up the parental locks, and you can make it so that, let's say even a friend or an uncle comes over with this game, you can put in this stuff, it will not. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately. It's like about violent video games and mature video games and how they could be hurting the youth. And the thing is that it's like I was under the impression that this argument. Hello, I'm making this video today as a response to some of the arguments that I hear lately.